introduction. First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Raja Vais, I think he's not around, for inviting me on this platform and sharing my views on this very important topic. And I'm really happy that I met Dr. Deepti Mankad today. She's the pioneer in this field, and we all look forward to her work, and we all get inspired every single day. So, being a seafarer's wife, of course, all my credentials aside, that one thing that really helped me cut through this industry was being a seafarer's wife, seeing that environment very close and understanding the rigors of all the seafarers, and understanding that, getting a insider's view of the whole environment. And that really helped me when I was designing the training programs, because I could speak the language of the seafarers. So that made a lot of difference. So this, incidentally, C Positive is also the name of the program that our company offers to the seafaring community for mental health and wellness, and that is how it came forward. So being C Positive, and we will try to understand that what being C Positive means. Okay, so to all the gentlemen and ladies sitting here, I would like to know what, according to you, is good mental health. What does what is the first thought that comes across to your mind when we talk about good mental health?
Where we are happy and we feel fulfilled whatever we have achieved in our life.
Correct. You are happy and you feel fulfilled about whatever you have achieved in your life. Anything else?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction.
Whatever doing, you should be satisfied.
Yes.
Good positive energy around.
Good positive energy around. But if you see your your day-to-day interactions or your life, do you feel happy and positive all the time?
No.
Is it possible to feel happy and positive all the time? So what about those emotions which are not so good? I would not call them negative emotions, but which are not so good, like anger, annoyance, irritation, frustration. What about those? They are also a part of our system, the emotional system that the God has given us. So do we, how do we handle them? And if we are angry, does it mean that we don't have good mental health? So how do we go about it? So when we talk about good mental health, of course, being happy, being positive is very important. But at the same time, we have to also embrace our negative emotions. And when we talk about good mental health, we also have, it also means having a good understanding of your responses to different situations. And I use the word responses, I don't use the word reaction. So when we have an understanding as to how we would be responding to different situations, we would be having good mental health. If I know that there are certain triggers in the environment, now this can make me angry. This is being mindful of myself, this is being situationally aware, and I can handle this. So the first thing to have good mental health is the acceptance of yourself wholly and fully of all the emotions that you go through, and to have an understanding and sometimes anticipating that this would happen to me, and then working towards it. So this is what good mental health actually means. Some of the research papers when I was going through, and sadly there is very little, I was talking to Dr. Mankad a few minutes back, there is very little research done on this in this area, and very little from our own country. So some of the research that I went through, this is what came up. Seafarers are among the occupational groups at most risk for stress. Psychological issues such as depression, anxiety, suicide, alcohol or drug dependence are well recognized health problems within the maritime sector. In the brackets, it's the person who has done the research. Minor mental health problems are the most common type of ill health on non-passenger ships. Another research said that the United Kingdom Protection and Indemnity Club reported that 4.4% of all deaths on board were attributable to suicide from 2014 to 2015, and that this number proliferated to 15.3 for the year 2015-2016. Look at the rise. The latest Seafarers Happiness Index report published by the Mission to Seafarers Q1 2022 reveals the lowest level of seafarer satisfaction for 8 years, with the index's measure of overall happiness decreasing from 6.41 to 5.85. So these are the recent research papers which are, I could manage to find on the internet. The major stressors, I don't want to talk about it because we are all from the maritime industry, and we all know that what are the major stressors, because we know the problem. We now get to talk about the solution. So just a quick look into this. Of course, there is loneliness, long-term separation from family, there is fatigue, there is rotating watch system, long voyages with long working hours, short ship turnaround time required for duty on short notice, multinational crews are there, environmental stressors are there, the physical stressors like motion, there's constantly moving, or there is bad weather, there is rolling chipping, there is noise around us, there is vibration, the weather can turn bad, the economic pressure is there is limited time for recreation. Now because of the pandemic, the shore leaves were also cut off. So all these things are the major stressors, but I want to come and focus on this page, which talks about the human factors. And like Captain Prashant just pointed out, OCIMF came with this whole idea of human factors this year, and now the companies are grappling with this term, because earlier it was human element, now they're talking about human factor. What is this whole confusion all about? So whenever we are approaching companies, the first question they ask is, what is the difference between human element and human factor? Human element was a more localized approach. If the person is working and he makes a mistake, so we go and we take that person out of this environment, we give him training, we give him counseling, whatever is required as per the situation, and then we put him back in the environment. So it was a more of, human element also recognized human error, but it was a more localized approach. Now they talk about human factors, and if you see that human factor is not only focused on that person, it is focused on, it is now it is spreading its wings to all the areas which will affect the performance of that individual. It can be, when I'm talking about managing self, I'm talking about mental health. When I'm talking about managing environment, I'm talking about people who are there in the environment. That can be the ship staff, that can be the shore staff, that can be the nationality they are working with, like the port staff that is coming up. So anything that is there in the environment can be managed. Managing the quality, the people who are joining the industry, they also contribute to mental health a lot, because if the right kind of people are not joining the industry, and I'll discuss it in detail in the later slides, they will not have good mental health, because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you cannot be happy. You cannot give your 100%, you cannot be happy. Managing shores, the shore staff, sometimes they're putting pressure on you, of course, but do you need to take that stress? One has to choose the stresses they want to take. So we will be talking about that. Families, if somebody is not well back home and one has to sail on board, that can be one of the major stressors, because that thought is constantly looming large in your mind. And with that thought, if you have to go and work in a hazardous environment, you can make mistakes. And last but not the least, managing change, any kind of change. And we all saw when things changed for us overnight during the pandemic, we all freaked out. We all got, we all didn't know, we all were living in fear for 2 years, and it was a big change for us. Because the things that looked absolutely normal to us, just going to a market and buying grocery, became a luxury for us at that point of time. So how well are we managing change? So these are all parts of human factor, and they all contribute to the mental health and well-being of a seafarer, because we are talking about the seafarer population. That is why I'm focusing on the seafarer. Now, my focus, like I said, I don't want to talk about the problems because we all have identified the problems. My focus here is that what are the solutions? So managing mental health, how it should be done. So it has to be done at 3 levels. The first level is the self. I cannot change the environment. There are a lot of things happening around me. I cannot change anything. The first area where I can work upon is myself. So the first step would be to managing oneself. Second comes the leadership. Because if the person is a very competent person but the system is bad, it can beat a good person. It can bring a lot of frustration in the person. So the system also has to be revamped, the processes, the hardware, everything has to be revamped to suit the person. And last but not the least, a very, very important component in the mental health of a seafarer is the family. How is the family holding up while the seafarer is away at sea? So that's also a very, very important point. Let's see, managing self. Acceptance and gratitude. 95% of the time when I go for the sessions, and the first question I always ask is, why are you here? Are you happy doing what you are doing? And most of the time, the answer is no. Then I ask them that, why did you choose this job? Can you guess what is the answer?
Money.
For money.
Yes.
For money. It is like, most of the time it is for money. Nobody says that I have joined this occupation because of the love for the sea. No, it is for the money, which is absolutely fine. There's no problem about being motivated with money, but that motivation cannot take you in the long way. I try to dig deeper, and then I ask you, okay, money is one motivation, then what else? Like, you could have got the same salary maybe if you could have done an MBA from a good college and gone to a nice fat paying corporate job. And they would say that, ma'am, I'm talking about the cadets also, I'm talking to the officers also, and they would say that, ma'am, we could not get through these prestigious colleges, prestigious engineering colleges or management colleges, and there was nothing, so we thought, let's do this. Now what is happening here? You are not fully invested. You are living a life of compromise, and that is how you look at it. It's unconsciously they are looking at it like that. So one cannot be 100% invested in this. So they have not accepted this. And then I make them sit and I talk to them, I tell them that a guy who has passed, who has done his engineering from IIT may not be able to survive on a ship. You need an absolutely different skill set to do this. And what you are doing is nothing short of amazing, because it is not everybody's cup of tea, so don't look down upon it. Have the pride for the uniform, and that pride for the uniform is missing in our industry. The acceptance is not there. The gratitude for what you have is not there. Look at the kind of exposure a person gets. And this is what I keep talking to the cadets, that be happy and be accepting of what you have. You want to quit sailing, you will eventually do it. But till the time you are there, be happy and accept it. Otherwise, don't go for it. It's as simple. Resilience. Are you able to bounce back? There would be, because this is a very, very dynamic industry, a lot of things are changing. The ports are changing, people are changing. Every time, you might be lined up for sign off, but the ship is drifting for 1.5 months. So you are right in the middle of nowhere. you can't sign off, but you can see the shores every single day. You see land, and you are just wondering when I would sign off. And you have to bounce back from that thought every day, because while you are on the ship, there is not a single day which is a holiday. Every day is a working day. So are you able to bounce back? And this is a very, very important factor in maintaining your mental health and wellness. Spending time with oneself. So before I started training in the maritime sector, the only point of reference for me as a seafarer was my husband, and I used to see him very motivated and doing stuff. And then when I went out and started training seafarers, I found that this was not the case in every person. That they were not really, there were some of them who were not very happy doing what they are doing. And one of the reasons, then one day I sat with him and I asked him that why you like to go to the ship so much? Like, you are always very excited. And he said, because when I go to the ship, I get a lot of time to myself, which when I am at home, I don't get. I was a little upset about it, of course. I mean, what do you mean by that? But then it also gave me a lot of food for thought, because that was the case for me as well. Because when he is on the ship, I can do certain things which I want to do because I get that space. It's not that I don't miss him. Of course I miss him, but we grow as individuals. And it also gives you a time to grow as individual if you invest in the right things. But if you keep sitting with this thought, I'm away from home, it's not going to work. So spend time with oneself, upgrade yourself, do things that you like, and utilize that time, because this job gives you that kind of a luxury. Take care of your finances. People who are joining the ship because the money has finished, now the bank balance is reducing, so there is now I have to go back to the sea, they will always go in stress. So take care of your finances, be judicious with your money, that is very, very important, and exercise. Most of the seafarers, when I meet them, and they tell me that, ma'am, we don't get any time on board, or when we are on board, we are doing a lot of physical work, so when we are at home, we are relaxing completely. When you are on board, it is also it's physically demanding job. Even if you are an officer, maybe you are not picking up heavy weights, but constantly going up and down the stairs, or constantly moving around in that area. If you are in a bigger ship like a VLCC, there is a lot of movement. So exercise will help you do your job better, and at the same time also support you in your mental health. Now, sometimes the seafarers, they say there are no exercise equipments, or the gym is not ready. I know that we have been advocating this very strongly through all our seminars and through all our training sessions. If there is no exercise equipment, you have your own body. You can run, you can do yoga. Not everything requires equipments. It's just that the intention has to be there. The intention has to be there, because you have to take care of yourself. Why wait for the environment to support you? First, let us get it from inside, and then the environment, if it is there to support us, nothing like it. Like I said, good mental health is about identifying your emotions and triggers. What are the triggers? What are my emotions? If this thing happens, how will I respond? And when once a person has understood it, it becomes easier to handle it. Upgrade yourself, like I said, read books, do things that you love to do, and you would find that the time on board is not as bad as you thought of it. Speak up. This is the big one. I was just talking to Dr. Mankad, and she said that there were, like, I spoke to a lot of seafarers on the phone during the pandemic, and they were really stressed out, they were anxious, and I would say kudos to them, because they found the right person to speak to, and they found the courage to speak about it. It's not easy, but speaking up helps. It really, really, it opens up. And when typically I've seen when the seafarers are on the ship, they don't want to talk to their families about the problems they are facing. Of course, they want to talk to the families, but they don't talk about the problems they are facing. At the same time, the families are also keeping a few things away from him because they don't want to stress him out. It's both the ways. It's only when, you know, the contract is over, you go back home and then you come to know that all these things happened. But a third person, like a psychologist or a person who is sitting at the 24/7 helpline, that person is a third party. That person is not judging you. That person will give you an ear, and you will also be able to clear up or vent out your emotions, and it's a good thing. This should be encouraged. Real connections over virtual connections. Now, this is, you know, people who are there on board now, they have access to internet. They are on social media. There is one guy who just had a fight with his chief officer. He comes back to his cabin. Nobody is in the mess room because everybody wants to have dinner and go back to their cabin, use the internet. So he goes back to his cabin. He's all by himself. So what is there to support him at that point of time?
Internet.
The phone and the internet or whatever gadget he's using. He opens the social media account and he finds 4 of his best friends sitting in a pub doing cheers with a beer mug in hand, and tagged this guy, missing you. How does he feel? So this guy feels that, oh, these guys are having good time, they're having fun, and I'm here on the ship, you know, stuck in the middle of the water, and I just had a fight with this nasty guy, and I have to live with him. I have to, like, 24/7 I have to look at his face. And look at these guys, they're having so much fun. Because nobody puts the bad times on social media, everybody is putting the good times, and that is how we are judging people. At the same time, these guys who are doing cheers in the pub, they are looking at his pictures and saying, wow, he just went to Paris, he was in New York. Aisi life honi chahiye. So both of us are judging each other, but we don't know what are the challenges. And that is why the person who will make the most difference at this point of time is the person who is next to you. The guy who is sitting in the mess room next to you eating food, that is the person who is going to make a difference, because if there is an emergency on board, this is the person you will watch out for, you would call out for. But if there is no connection, there cannot be, there would be no one. So there is a lot of communication happening on board. Now the communication has increased, everything has to be logged down, everything has to be put in the mail or whatever. But the communication is happening, but there is no connection. So we have to make real connections. That is what matters at the end of the day. And consult a specialist when required. In our country, talking to a psychologist is a big taboo. It's a stigma. Especially in the professional setup, if a person is calling the psychologist, that can be a red flag. But still, I would recommend do it, because the specialist knows how to handle this problem. Neither you, nor your family, nor any friend. The specialist knows. And there's always a non-judgmental third person's point of view to this whole situation. And that is where it makes all the difference. So when we are talking about leadership interventions, we are talking about the shore and the ship both. It has to come from both the direction. It cannot be, you cannot put all the responsibilities on the captain, and you cannot say that he is responsible for his team, he has to maintain the mental health. No, it has to, the backing, the culture has to be created from the shore. So let's quickly go through. Open communication. Do we allow people to speak up? And we can only allow people to speak up when we speak up for ourselves. Now, when there is a senior and there's a junior, sometimes the senior can share the mistakes he has made to the junior in a way that it creates learning between the two. Not like, without the sense of insecurity that if I talk about my mistakes, this guy will come back to me and say, oh, you also did the same thing. No. When we talk about our own, vulnerabilities, we open up new avenues for communication, and that is so important. So what is allowed when that communication is coming up? Because like I said, official communication is too much of there, but there is no connection. And what makes a connection is being human to each other. Like, this is what I feel. If a cadet comes to the captain and says, sir, I don't want to sail and I'm feeling very homesick. And the captain says कि हमारे ज़माने में तो हम 13 महीने sail करते थे, but this is, you guys can't take it even for 10 days. It's not helping the situation. But if the captain says, yes, I know I have this feeling because when I was a cadet, I used to feel the same. Immediately, connection. The cadet feels, oh, I think, oh, this is normal. He also felt the same. So that is what I'm talking about. Trainings are important, of course, mental health issues, but the trainings have to be more frequent. It cannot be one training session in the entire year and then done with it. No, it has to come frequently because we are talking about changing attitudes, changing behavior. This is a long drawn process. It cannot happen in one session. Another system that has been very, very successful in the armed forces is the buddy system. Are you aware of the buddy system? Can you tell me what is it all about?
Like on a ship, one person is dedicated as your buddy.
Correct.
And he will like rate you on your job and you can discuss everything with him.
Correct. So this is like, when it is coming to the professional, the job, like you said, rate you on the job. A buddy is also the go-to person. Now, when you are joining a new team, you don't know, sometimes it takes time to make connections, and if it is a multinational crew, you take more time to connect. It is normal, it's human. But if somebody tells you that this is your buddy, immediately you will have a connection with that person, and you would, everything, whatever you feel, you would like to go and tell that person, or, 99% of the time, it becomes a good connection. Of course, there are some people you don't get along. Maybe. So then you can go and ask for a change in buddy. So this has worked very well in the armed forces. I would like people to sit up and take note and bring it in our maritime system also. That one person be dedicated to you. That will be the go-to person. That will be the person with whom you can say, come, let's have tea together. Or that will be the person that if you feel sad, you can just knock at your buddy's door and just ask him to sit up and listen to you. Nutrition is very important. The food. Because it is one of the biggest motivators on board, and I felt it myself. So I know that how important it is. I was really missing Indian food when I was there on certain ships, and I could feel that a person who is doing back-breaking hard work and who is working, who is not there with his family, what it feels when even the food is given to him is not motivating enough. Quality and availability of exercise facilities and equipment on board. We spoke about it. Exercise is an important part of mental health. We cannot be mentally happy if we are physically not fit. If you feel physically challenged, your mental health will also go down. So it is an important part, and the companies should sit up and take note of this as well. The crewing levels, all this is I'm talking about when we are talking about leadership, it has to come from the shore also. The crewing levels have to increase because sometimes it is like, it can lead to a burnout. I was recently talking to a chief officer. He had gone for 4 months and they did 40 STS operations in 3 months. And later on, the additional chief officer was called for, and that chief officer turned out to be a new guy, and he knew nothing. So even though he had support, he was not able to utilize that. And so one day he had to finally go to the captain and say that please relieve me because I can't take the pressure anymore. So all these things have to be taken care of. That what is the kind of work, and accordingly the crew size has to be decided. Safety behavior, psychological safety, of course we all are working towards it. It can be done through training. It can be done through counseling. And when we are talking about training and counseling, it has to go hand in hand. It cannot be that training is there and it has ended. After the training, the counselor or the person who is given the training should keep going back to the seafarer to find out that whatever was being taught in the training session, are you able to utilize it? How are you feeling? Is there any challenge? So that connection should go on till the time that guy is on board, and even after he disembarks and comes down, even after that, because Sometimes, if you have had a bad experience on a ship, your perception about the occupation or the profession is as good as your last, I would say, you feel very bad about this profession. If your experience is good, you feel good about it. So it has to be, every time the person is disembarking, we have to talk to him and say that, not every ship is the same. And that counseling has to come as a part of the training program. Social events on board, the parties, the mess room chit-chats, how important they were. If we have seafarers here, they all understand. And it is now a dying tradition. It's not there anymore. It has to be brought back. Women are there on board. So a lot of people have different opinions about it. Some people say that women should not be there in this industry. Some people say they are welcoming them with open hands. But it's not about what I feel, it's not about what you feel. It's about accepting the change. The change has come. So now we work around it. The women will be there on board. So instead of looking at them as women seafarers, let us look at them as colleagues and assist them and support them and take the support from them as well. It's not like, we are not sitting on a pedestal and we are supporting them. Take support from them also to feel that they are a part of this industry. So that's very important. And training again, ship and shore trained to handle psychological emergencies. Any kind of emergency, when we are doing the training sessions through case studies, to simulations, to role plays, we have to create such emergencies, and then we have to train them so that they are mentally prepared before they are going on board. Now, out of this, one thing that has recently came up, and it was there in a lot of social media platforms, was about the shore leave. Recently, the AMSA, that is the Australian Maritime Association, they recognized the need for shore leave in the seafarers. They detained a ship and they said that your guys have not gone for a shore leave for a long time. And it is being recognized. Now, some of the companies are saying that it should be made mandatory, that the people should go down. And it's a good change that we are thinking, because this is so important for mental health and well-being of the seafarer to break, because that is one connection that keeps, that is one way to keep them connected to the civilization. Otherwise, especially if the seafarers are sailing on VLCCs, they are like, I remember, talking to seafarers who have sailed for 40 days at a stretch, 50 days at a stretch. And then they end up at the anchorage, the ships come, they take the cargo from them, and again from the anchorage they go back. They just see land in the horizon, and they are not even going and touching land. So it can be really daunting on them. So shore leaves, if made compulsory, can be a big catalyst in creating good mental health. And support the seafarers to enhance their knowledge and skills. Now this is a big one. When the people, they come back from the ship and they have those 3-4 months, it is very important that they engage in something else which is not connected to the ship or maritime. Of course, they have the courses. A lot of people keep complaining that we always have courses lined up. We get no time. But despite that, the overall interest and overall, the personality will only develop if you are interested in other things and you explore other things. I know of seafarers who are very good in writing poetry. I've known them who have written books, or who are exploring other sub areas of expertise, or they are trying to develop skills or hobbies. And that is a good thing, because it also creates, your job is not everything. It is not what defines you. There are other things as well that defines you, and you can be good at that. And having said that, that gives you a better sense of self-esteem and better sense of self. And last but not the least, the regular contracts. And this is again a big one, because sign-offs are still not happening on time. the contracts end in 4 months, but the people start looking for a reliever in the 5th month, and by the time it's 6th month, the motivation to work, mental health, everything has gone down. Thank you, Captain Prashant, and thank you all of you. You've been a lovely audience, and it's an honor, absolutely.